Namaskar. In today's edition of Right Angle, I'd like to share with you what I think of some important development that has just taken place, that is on the agreement between India and China that they will be ending their military standoff in Ladakh, eastern Ladakh, after I think 50 or 54 months of their that military clash that took place there, and they have both decided for joint patrol of the area that would eventually lead to the military disengagement of both the sides, so that the pre-2020 peace and tranquility on the, what we say, the line of actual control between the two countries in that part of the Himalayas will be maintained. Whether that is going to really materialize on the ground, because this has been decided by the leaders, our diplomats and the military leaders of both the countries. Hopefully it is going to be implemented, and as our army chief has said, things would be towards the restoration of normalcy. But what I want to emphasize on, I'm not going into those details of that India-China thing. I think that is not the purpose for which I have decided to share my thoughts with you. I just want to highlight one particular angle of it. And what is that? That is this very timing. Because this decision was, I think, definitely negotiations must be taking place for months together. But all of a sudden, this was declared publicly at a particular point of time. How does one look at that? So, in my considered view, there are two ways of looking at this important breakthrough in the tense relationship between India and China. One very normal and easier way of looking at this breakthrough is that look, this is an important confidence building measure on the eve of a very important summit, international summit, that the BRICS summit that is taking place right now in Russia, where our Prime Minister has gone. The Russian President Putin is there, and the Chinese Supremo Xi Jinping also will be there, and hopefully they all will be meeting. And this is an important summit meeting representing nearly 40 to 45% of the world's population, because as BRICS consists of the countries of the South, quote unquote South, that the developing world. If you add China, India, then Russia, South Africa, I think, and Brazil, from Latin American side. So these are the four original countries. Subsequently, in the last BRICS summit, 4 more were added, like Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. So put together, these countries represent 45% of the world's population, and nearly again nearly 50% of the global economy, or more than that. So it's an important summit meeting. So if this important breakthrough has taken place concerning two of its important partners like India and China, then it is definitely a very positive development. And by keeping this success of this BRICS summit in mind, perhaps the two countries decided to have this breakthrough just on the eve of the visit. I think this took place yesterday, and today the BRICS summit. I think our Prime Minister left for this morning, and at the airport before he departed for Russia, he said that how important this meeting is, that he will be meeting the Russian and the president for the second time, and our special strategic partnership will be further strengthened because of his visit to attend this BRICS summit. But all said and done, I personally will go for the second way of looking at it. As I said, this is the easier way of looking at it. I am not saying that this is not relevant or this is not important, but I think that there is something more to it than meets the eye. And what is that quote unquote more? What that could be? In my humble opinion or view, I think it was deliberately done to give or rather convey a signal, a very clear signal to the United States on the part of India that India cannot be taken for granted. Because what is happening for the last few months, a narrative has been built there in America, and which is being followed by its satellite country, which I call Canada to be a satellite of United States. And what is that narrative? That the Indian agents are there after the lives of American citizens, Canadian citizens, and they must be punished. India is not exactly a very democratic country. There is lessening of the religious freedom with each passing day under the Modi regime, and what not. I think this sort of narrative has gained primacy. If you look at the broad Western or rather American and Canadian media is concerned, or rather the discussions among their policy makers, particularly these Democrats, and it is every election every year. I think next month United States will elect its next president. So this sort of narrative that has been systematically built over the last few months is something which perhaps the Modi government must have realized is exceeding or crossing the limits, and they need to be given this clear-cut signal that despite all our proximity and ties which are becoming closer and closer over the last 10-20 years, you cannot take India for granted. We have got our self-esteem, we have got our, after all, we are a global power, and you just cannot go on accusing us of all these flimsy allegations and what not. And there is a history to it. As a student of foreign policy, I must remind you that if you take the broad India-US relations ever since India became an independent country in 1947, you will realize, or rather, I will rather argue, and I hope you people will be agreeing with me, that despite the fact, as I will be arguing it out now, that there is everything under the sun that should have made India and the United States natural partners. If India has gone closer to Russian side, Moscow, the earlier the USSR, Soviet Union, now Russia, then it is always because Americans have never proved to be a dependable partner. In fact, at every critical juncture in our independent history, I mean the history of us as an independent nation, the Americans have not really helped us, and they in a way have forced us to go closer towards Russia. Way back, I think that was in 1993, there was an American diplomat, and then he subsequently, after his retirement, became a good foreign policy analyst and good intellectual. His name is Dennis Cox. He wrote a book called The Estranged Democracies. India, US, The Estranged Democracies. And that book, I think he wrote in 1993. And he said that how since 1947, or rather in between 1947 and early 90s till the end of the Cold War, the relations saw more downs than ups. I mean between India and the United States. Despite everything, they shared, they believed in democracy, they believed in pluralism, they did not like communism, or for that matter, the Islamic fundamentalism. Everything, under the sun, if you see, then, they are, as I said, very natural, partners. But despite that, the relationship was never all that, good. Why? And surprisingly, you will see, after another 7-8 years, I think 1993, I think 2008, the CIA, their topmost intelligence agencies, they classified some documents pertaining to Indo-Soviet relations, and that was in 2008. And if you go through those secret documents that have been declassified, not classified, they declassified, now that has been made open for the public, declassified in 2008, these quote-unquote secret documents also we clearly suggest that the Americans knew it, that India and Russia, or Delhi and Moscow, were not natural allies, in the sense that, the Congress leaders, particularly Jawaharlal Nehru, he was never comfortable with communism and communists. And in fact, soon after India became independent, the then undivided Communist Party, which was vocally and very clearly supported by the then Soviet Union, did everything to destabilize and create problems on the path of the Nehru government. In fact, till 1954 and 55, we had very rudimentary relations with Moscow. I think normal diplomatic relations, but nothing much wasn't happening. It was only after Nehru was invited by the then Soviet Supremo Khrushchev, that I think was 1954 or 55, I'm not exactly very sure. Then things turned. Why? Because this is the time, because of its Cold War policy, the United States thought that either you are with us, if you are not with us, then you are our enemies. I mean, that is the broad approach that they had, and they had that ideological blocks fighting with Cold War. As I said, that Soviet Union, Soviet-led bloc and American-led bloc, and Americans wanted India to become a part of their bloc, which because of our so-called non-alignment, which basically means maintaining one's country's strategic autonomy, we rightly didn't agree with it. But that was not appreciated by the Americans. So that is the time what happened. The Pakistan was made a partner or treaty. I think joined. Pakistan joined CENTO and this side, and SEATO, Southeast Asian Treaty Organization in the Southeast Asian side. So this is bloc politics which we never wanted. And what was our relationship with Pakistan those days. And America never supported our position on Kashmir in the United Nations, which readily was done by the then Soviet Union. So things really warmed up between India and the then Soviet Union. But as I said, Nehru was never comfortable with this ideology, this communist ideology, and always Soviet Union was seen with little bit of suspicion, and that was fairly evident when India-China war took place in 1962. Soviet Union played a very neutral role. And even then subsequently when this India-Pakistan war took place in 1965, though India was in a very comfortable position, I'm not touching on that controversial aspect of the how Lal Bahadur Shastri died there. There are lots of mysteries surrounding that. You must have seen a movie also came out last year or year before last year. I'm not going into whether that is true or not. Let's not go into that. But the point is, Moscow wanted to be a quote unquote peacemaker between India and Pakistan, which the then in the Indian government in the heart of their hearts didn't like it. And soon after this war came to an end, to further antagonize, or rather India felt further antagonized when the then Soviet Union started giving military aid to Pakistan. And in fact, those 3 or 4 years surprisingly were good from the point of view of India and US relations. Soon after that, China war took place, in the sense that you must have seen Kennedy was there, the president, and I think particularly those 3-4 years, 62 to 66, were pretty good on the India-US front, because as I said, that this nurturing suspicion that India always had about Russia and then Moscow, and that also explains why after Nehru and Shastri, when Indira Gandhi came, the then Soviet Union leader Brezhnev came out with this concept of Asian collective security. Wanted to this thing, all leading Asian countries should be a party to it, and things blah blah blah, and which again rightly Indira Gandhi suspected, and India did not show any enthusiasm for that. There other subsequently went for that famous Indo-Soviet treaty, but that was bilateral treaty between India and Soviet Union, and that was in a way because of the American policies, the way they were supporting Pakistan, and Pakistan what it had done to then eastern Pakistan, which subsequently became Bangladesh 71 war, and the refugees came. So in a way, Americans actually forced that way India to go for that bilateral treaty with Moscow, Though India had turned down Brezhnev's concept of a wider collective security for Asia. Uh, so even after that, there are real, in the heart of their hearts, India was, very particular about the Soviet Union's, this thing role, economically, in the sense that our trade was completely one. There are more, Soviet goods here. That is a complicated history. But the point is that very simply, let me put it this way, that the main point that I am trying to make is this, that it is the American refusal to be siding with India, which for all, from every point of view, should have been a natural partner because of our democratic credentials and our value system. India was forced to get closer towards Moscow. And of course, because of the Cold War, the Russians also, they were not doing or indulging any philanthropic work because they needed an important country like India to be there in their side. And it also happened economically, in the economic field too. You'll be surprised to know that our steel industries that were set up after we became independent, because we are a developing country, we needed foreign collaboration. Like Durgapur was set up with the British help. The steel plant in Rourkela in Odisha was set up with the German help. Russians had helped in the establishment of the steel plant in, what is that plant, Chhattisgarh, Bhilai. And India wanted America also to help in setting up an important steel plant, and that is at Bokaro. And the then American ambassador, his name is a very famous chap, he's dead now. He's a great scholar turned, he was appointed by John Kennedy. J.K. Galbraith, and he was I think ambassador till 64 or 65, that is the period. And he was so enthusiastic. He convinced and he made the US American President Kennedy to set up this steel plant at Bokaro. But as you know that Kennedy was assassinated, I think November 1963, and soon after he was not there, and this guy had completed his tenure. Mr. Galbraith had left Delhi. The then American Congress, US Congress, or the then the American leadership decided against setting up this steel plant in India, that is Bokaro. And what was the dubious reason that was given? Though India is socialistic, it's a public sector, this thing, because this steel plant would have been a public sector, so-called socialist thing, that doesn't tally with the American value system, and what not, they declined. And when they declined, obviously, Soviet Union took advantage of it. They said that nothing doing, we are prepared to come over and we set it up. And they did set it up, the next year, I think 64, the work started in Bokaro. So that really is reconfirming the basic point that I am trying to explain to you, that whenever at critical junctures, India needed American help and India needed American support, America never came forward. As a result, what happened? India, though ideologically, even value system wise, is not nearer to what Moscow represented, was forced to go closer towards it. And one can understand that because there was the Cold War, there was an ideological conflict, broad polarization was there, and India did not exactly go to your side. One can understand this, for this. But then, what is the problem now? After the end of the Cold War, since 1990s, as Mr. Cox had written, there are more downs than ups in Indo-US relations till the end of the Cold War. After Cold War, what has happened is that there have been more ups than downs in India-US relationship. I think over the last, say, 30, 40 years, the two countries have come much closer, whether it is in the field of security or in the field of technology, in the field of trade, and then of course the most important component of this trend happened to be the Indian Americans, that diaspora, because the Indians occupy the topmost post positions, whether technologically, medically, and what not. They are the most, nearly 5 million, and so much so that actually the next American president could be an half Indian. This Kamala Harris actually is half Indian. So despite all these things, what really has happened in the last 7-8 months or 1 year, and some Khalistani terrorist in Canada is killed under controversial or dubious circumstances. There is no concrete proof, and the Canadians say that under the name of their Five Eyes Alliance, the American intelligence gave them that clue that Indians were involved. And now what has happened is this: the Americans are saying that these Khalistanis who are there citizens in America, the Indian quote unquote agents are there in a mission to kill them, and they say that the Indian officials are involved. As somebody has gone to the court, and our national security advisor Ajit Doval is now afraid even to go to America. There is every possibility that once he lands there, he would be arrested. And this narrative that has been systematically orchestrated and talked about and publicized about, that India under Modi is a fascist country. The so-called liberal Democrats, and as in one of my previous episodes I had talked that how the world is seeing a clear-cut polarization between these people, the so-called liberal Democrats, and the Islamists. I think they all have joined hands together, and the way the Americans and these particular elements interfered in our last general elections, and they ensured, they tried their level best to ensure that Modi and the NDA lost the elections, and their favorites would have come. But this sort of thing, that I think limit has been crossed, and in my humble opinion, perhaps the government has realized enough is enough. I think now the time has come. The Americans have to make a very clear-cut choice whether these few Khalistanis, your citizens are openly, your so-called citizens are openly threatening the unity and integrity of the country. And one chap, whose life is so important, I think it is projected as if he is the most important individual in the United States today. It is not President Joe Biden or Trump or Kamala Harris. I think the way, if you read the Americans and hear their officials, you think the most important person in America today is a person, his name is Patwan Singh Panun, who I think today this morning has given a threat that now come November 9th, all Air India planes would be bombed. Indira Gandhi Airport will be renamed Byan Singh Airport. Punjab would be liberated. These are, and he has issued open threats to Indian diplomats and non-Sikh persons. And you are talking of, he's talking of, reviving a cause, which is almost dead. All our, Sikh brothers, they don't give a damn to the people like them. But for America, these people are so important. One, Panun's life is so important. One Niger's life is, so important that you are, prepared to forego the friendship of a country like India. And in the process, if India has, reacted, and if India says that, if that is your choice, then let it be. We can, do business with, Russia and, China. And that means then you will have no moral or any political or diplomatic, ground to say that why the hell you are supporting Russia, why the hell you are, neutral on Russia's invasion of, in Ukraine. What moral rights, you have? Actually, you are, pushing India as it happened in the past. I think I gave this in a long, I did so many examples of the past only to prove this point. If the Americans complain that India is getting closer towards Russia, whether in the past or now, they are squarely responsible for that. It is they who are pushing us towards the other side. So if that is your choice, if you think some Khalistanis are more important, Khalistanis, they are like, so important to you despite the fact that, they are zeros here, nobody gives a damn to them. And you are indulging in a way in the campaign to break India, to adversely affect our unity and integrity, then if that is your choice, we have also our choice. So let me stop here. Thank you for listening to me.